So until you settle in, I'll just say that I'm going to ask you to think about yourselves as entrepreneurs in the fields you're in. I'm going to ask you to think about yourselves as people who are trying to get a fresh mindset and fresh perspectives to the work you're already doing and you're expert at doing. Because what I'm introducing to you is a completely different mindset and language. And I don't know that the way to collaborate with caregivers is a straight path. I think this is more of a work in progress of me learning more about the world you're in, you sharing your insights with me. So I'm here as an entrepreneur as well. All right. What do you read here? And I need your voice. So on a count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right. Nowhere, now here is the same thing. All right. So here's the now here. So imagine the people you work with, the young victims. For them, it's much harder to spot chance. Chance is nowhere in their eyes, in their worlds. And when you come with the tools that are trauma focused, this is the kind of information that they get about themselves. And David spoke about labeling, and I'm sure other people here understand how it damages and depreciates the value of a person in his own eyes. And what I'm here to share with you is the world of risk management, which I was part of. And the shift I took in developing chance management is a completely new perspective. And I'll give you some of my insights. It's really my discoveries. I don't think I've invented anything. I just think I put things in right frameworks, and I like to simplify things. So with that, what we're going to do today is a little about chance management today, in the next 27 minutes, the mindsets that are required for that. I would go into chance types, but just a little tiny bit of a tasting. What self-portraiting really is. It's a word I invented, but why is it so important for chance management? And the concept of transformation, which was created actually for my PhD studies, because chance management for children is too much. The word management is very strong, but transformation as a term for caregivers and for those who are adolescents at risk might be more appealing. And sometimes it's the term itself, the idea that you can actually do something like this, like chance management. And I know when I was in India, I was asked many times, do you mean karma management? I said, no, I mean chance. Because chance is in the future, and every single person in this room has multiple futures. So do the kids and children you're treating. They have multiple futures, and how they shape up their future depends on life outside, externally, but also the internal chances, the things that they carry and the things they do. And it's a work in progress. So with that, chance was always part of this world. But back then in the times, it was thought that it was in the hands of gods. And then as we progressed, people started predicting and calculating and creating forecasts to the point where risk management was created in the thought that they can actually control the future. The truth of the matter is that, thank God, we're only human and we'll never know what the future holds, but we get to participate in it each day at a time. So how do we look at the future? So I know you're all caregivers and you're familiar with Freud and a lot of different theories about how you review the past, the present, and the future. But I'll say that the present can be reviewed as a result of our past, which is what a lot of you are trying to correct, but also as a reflection of your future. And with that in mind, this is what chance management is trying to do, create a very different perspective about the future and understanding that we cannot change the past. And there is no point in trying to avoid it or go into positive psychology and looking only at the positive stuff in our lives, but actually recognizing the past, reframing a lot of the experiences of the past, and turning them into a platform, a stepping stone moving forward. In this era we're living in, we're very privileged. And I'm going to just share with you some of the reasons why this is the best time to live in. Because for every single person, and country and state and company, but every single individual, child, even abused, the options have increased in moving out of where they are. So is the time and effort to calculate how to move out. We ask consuming questions, and this is something very complicated about our times because we're no longer asking questions about simple ways of living, but also finding ways to be more productive, creative, meaningful. And this goes for all caregivers, asking yourself a question about what you're here to do. More options is more freedom for the young people, and I'm used to giving this talk in universities as well, but those students are in a different position than the ones you're caring for, and they're very confused and paralyzed because there's so many options for them. Even in the academic world, vast opportunities. More freedom creates a situation of an over-choice. If you want to manage, you must decide. Decide comes from a very strong family of words of suicide and genocide and homicide, because when you decide, you murder the alternatives, and it's very difficult, but that's the only way to move forward. So risk management was invented to deal with chaos. And when I speak about risk management, you can hear it as trauma-focused intervention. Dealing with the trauma is dealing with the risk factors. And it was created to help us survive in a world full of uncertainty and threat. Now, when you read this, you relate to a lot of your work. Then I came, and after years of being in risk management, it dawned on me that everything I say about this world, it's volatile and it's full of options and unpredictable and so forth. That's exactly why there's more options and more opportunities and more hope. And I came up with the concept of chance management, because chance management will actually, instead of survive, help you thrive in a world full of possibilities and hope. And it's the same world. It's just you saw in the beginning. Some people saw nowhere, some people saw now here. The world is full of options, and every single person you've ever met or treated or tried to help has multiple futures. And I think that one of the things that I can bring into the caregiver's world is a perspective of how to do the chance management as an intervention, very, very quick and fast way of showing, of positioning, and of framing what those chances are. For a human being, they're internal and external, and they rely on identity. So if you want, some people have already told me that I deal with identity architecture. I think, David, you spoke about it too, in art, through art. The whole idea is that we can become something we're not. That's why the future is such a great place for us to work on. Okay, so the definition of what I do is optimizing. Optimizing by leveraging resources towards growth. Now, this is the business definition, but let me go into the one that I use for this world in my PhD. Transformation, it's another invention. What does it mean? It's a conscious act of actually trying to transition from a negative state of being to a resourceful way of living. So I'll let you take a picture of this. But the whole idea is I don't know exactly that I know how to do this. All I know is that the methods and practice I've created, and I've worked with leaders and CEOs and heads of organizations. I've been sent by the country to national projects for the EU. I know it's working. I know it makes a huge difference in the lives of the people I touch. So I think that there must be a way to touch the ones who really need it more than any CEO or leader around us. The children who don't stand a chance don't have that chance and should be given that opportunity. The mindsets, I'll do this really quickly. The first and the most important one is the chance to be you. Every single person in this room, do you have any idea what the probability of you being you? You being born to the parents you were born to, in the country you were born to, in the time you came into this world, with the body you came into this world, with all your internal features and external. This is the vehicle we carry throughout our life. So what is the likelihood of you being you? The number is 1 in 400 trillion. And as a result, I can tell you that there's never been in this world anyone like you, and there'll never be anyone like you. You're singular. That's one of the reasons why a lot of the books about happiness and survival and therapy and curing are not exactly what every single person out there needs. There are no manuals for any of us. We need to create them as we go. We can learn from others, but no one will ever be like you and have the same story with the same behaviors and the same interpretation and the same capabilities and so forth. So with that, I take the word responsibility, I divide it in two, and I said we need to create abilities to respond. And everybody is different. So part of what I'm trying to do with Rachel here is what is the responsibility of the caregiver and what is the responsibility of that child or young person with his life moving forward. And I want to place that responsibility in their hands as well, because there's nothing in the world that can change their lives more than they can with your help. Which is why self-portraiting, if there's only one person like you in the world, then self-portraiting, understanding who you are, what you're made of, is so critical. That's your critical path in life. And how do you do that? How do you build it? So I'll show you a few ways. But before I go into that, let me talk to you about a very interesting term that I think is applicable to every single person in this room. The term unfair advantage. Every single person has an unfair advantage. It's not something we do. It's not something we learn. It's something we are. And when I look for the positive unfair advantage, I help people understand where they shine, where they come out, what stands in them. So if you're charismatic, or if you're the kind of person that brings affinity, the people just like you wherever you go, or you're very knowledgeable, very resourceful, very brave, very courageous, have an excellent memory, your voice, like David, one of your features, unfair advantage, wherever you go, your voice is always out there. Seriously, these are the things that we go with them. And when you talk to a child or a young person and ask them about these things, you make them feel like they're special, and you bring out something that is unique about them. And there's a lot of different things that I bring out in people that I work with. This is just one example. And the reason why it's very important to understand and discover our assets is because they are part of a source that we have. And when you know what your source is, it becomes a resource and you learn how to use it. It becomes an asset. And the art, the whole idea of chance management is the art of capitalizing on what we have, not on what we don't. So, optimal way to operate, no matter what, is not to focus only on the hardware, but also on the software. What we believe in, what we dream, where we're creative, what we're passionate about. All these things steer the intention and direction in which we go in life, and they're not part of the facts and the figures, which are very hard in the cases of the people you work with. It's the focus that shifts. Einstein once asked, what is matter? And he answered, matter is where you direct your energy. So if you direct your energy into fixing up people, then they'll feel broken. If you direct the energy into helping them find what their resources are, making them stronger and believe in themselves and be passionate about themselves and about life moving forward, then you're directing their energy to a new place. So in the business world, I'll go through this quickly. In the risk, we look for the worst case scenarios and we devaluate, and we look at liabilities and threat and fear and risk factors and the figures, which is a lot of what the work that is cut out for you is doing, because it's critical. It's important to treat what's not working, because these kids and young people and even grown-ups need that kind of help. But then we look at the other side, the evaluation of the assets. How do you optimize with the broken system? How do you optimize what you have? Look for the variables, things you can change, things you can work with. So how does it work in the caregiver's world? So this is a piece of what I've presented as my thesis. I'm just going to real quickly go through. Instead of living in despair, living in hope. This is what intervention, the chance intervention can create. Instead of devaluation, you go for evaluation. Instead of focusing on liabilities, you focus on assets. Instead of feeling powerless, you make them feel powerful. Instead of feeling lost and helpless, you find a new position and you feel resourceful. Instead of thinking that your present is a result of the past, you start looking at the present as a reflection of your potential future. Instead of being in an analyzing mode, which is a given, they are analyzed day in, day out, looked at only the facts and the figures and their background and so forth. You start looking at an optimizing mode and variables that can be worked with. Instead of being in reactive mode, waiting for things to change for them, which is one of the biggest problems, even in teenagers. I mean, my kids, I think of them. This is a pathology for all youth around the world. They're waiting for things to change for them. I want to put them in active mode. I will change. I will manage how my life looks like. So instead of working on to survive, start teaching them and talking to them about to thrive. It's a completely different ballgame. So let me show you how I do it. For the personal chance management, I'll say every single person has his own profile. It's unique and singular, and it's characterized by a lot of different attributes, your profile. And you also have a portfolio. In the business world, your portfolio brings up your value, everything you've done in life, your degrees, and the assets you acquired. And some of the things in your portfolio are accomplishments and achievements, but they bring up the value of your profile. And when you know what your profile looks like and your portfolio, you gather them together, you've created an opportunity to actually leverage, to actually feel that there's certain things you can actually plan forward using those. And that's what I do in a plan. So how do you build it up? If I need to sum it up, and I think I've talked to a lot of caregivers and thinking about the people I'd like to work with in the beginning, the one first condition I have is for those who have decided, among the ones who want to change their life, they want a new chance. I feel like those are the first early adopters who can actually, I can approach them and speak to them in this language. This is good for every single person in this room who wants to change something in life. The first thing is to decide you want to change that and be committed. The second part is the profile, which we create with personal assets. It's a series of investigative questions which all project and highlight the positive attributes in the person sitting in front of me. Depending on the age, questions change. But the whole point is to bring out what's great about them. After you create the profile, you create the portfolio. It's the external assets. Things about their life stories that have brought value to their life. And there's no person in this world that doesn't have positive stories and positive events and positive memories about things that created value in their life. And when we gather all that, we can create a practice, which is a very individual plan, which is why one of the things that I think is a challenge is how do you do this to many at the same time? Because I know how I influence single people one at a time, but when I go one to many, I can influence a whole room, but it's a different type of influence. So here's the fun stuff. This is what I've discovered about this world. Types of chances. The first is the random. I mean, I'm thinking of my first husband, how I met him, the second husband, how I met him. I only married twice, but they both randomly showed up in my life. Much like a lot of the greatest things about your life happened by chance, a random chance. The second is the planned. A lot of the work you do is planned work. It's long and it's tedious and it's step by step, but it's planning forward. And the third type of the chances are the exponential ones. They have a multiplying effect. Suddenly you're touching many, you're doing something, and it's all coming together. So how does it work? The first one, remember the chance is now here? It appears from nowhere. It has many names. Click moment, it has chance moment, serendipity, luck, karma, something above obvious, clarity moment. But what happens is that something happens that can actually give you an unexpected transformative change, a new direction. And one of the reasons why I show this is because one of the things these people have to be, much like everyone else in this world today, is alert, eyes open. And it's much easier to spot chance when you know what your chances look like, when you know what you're looking for. So in my case, and this is why I'm here today, it happened on a plane. because I was in Japan opening a new branch of our company, and I had to come back to Israel because my daughter was enlisting to the army. So I had to find a flight back to Israel as soon as possible, and I flew through Bangkok, where on the midnight flight, Miss Professor Rachel got on the plane, and we both went to sleep. We were exhausted, but when we woke up in the morning, we were still in air, and we started talking. And I spoke about my work as a high-tech senior vice president, and I saw that it wasn't really clicking. Maybe she was still tired, but, and then I started, and then I started talking about chance management. And when you have 2 hours to kill, you pull out your laptop and you start showing pictures, and some of the pictures I showed are actually here in my presentation. And when I showed self-portraiting, she said, wait a minute, 1 second. You need to be presenting at my conference. This is the conference we were talking about a few months ago. And then she asked me about my publications, and I said, I have many interviews. I've written in a magazine for 2 years about chance stories. She says, no, not press, publications, academic. And I said, well, 3 years ago, I wanted to get my PhD, but I was rejected by the business school. They said, chance is not something you can research. So I said, fine, I'm not gonna, it's not gonna stop me. And then she said, why didn't you come to me? So I point outside the plane. There's a window there in the sky. And I said to her, well, here I am in the sky coming to you. Said, great. Now, the thing about chances are, even though they're random, is what happens is nothing happens if you don't do something with them. They come and go. Every single day you have chances to do something different, to come up with a new idea. But that's the nature of chances. They just disappear. So chance management is really spotting a chance, but then go ahead and manage that. So what did management in our case meant? It meant, first of all, to exchange phone numbers and then start our dialogue and a relationship and meeting each other and driving back and forth. And the PhD is nothing compared to the things we can do together, but that's discovering how we can multiply our forces together, because we're very different in what we do in life. But somehow the connection between this world of therapy and helping unprivileged children and young people, together with tools that are working in the strong world, in the business world, in the leadership world, is something that if we do well, we can actually impact many. So that's one of the reasons why I'm standing here today. It didn't just happen. How often do you sit next to someone on the plane and nothing happens? Most of the times. So this is chance management. This was a random opportunity. The second type was the planned. So what do? We take the same world we know, the same language we know, and we come up with a new point of view. And then we build new tools. And then we can create a new field. And when we change those rules, we can create a new world. So imagine this transformation as a term in a few years from now. Just another way of helping people who want to change and need to go through a process that is short, that will help them understand how they do it. A simple blueprint, a simple manual that can actually give them some ideas about how to do that. So that's another example. The third, and that's the fastest way people grow, companies grow, countries, startups, we're in Starterplan, is you're in the intersection. It's actually identifying people and situations and events that can, and alliances that can act as multipliers. So when I teach this to people, I say the fastest way is to think about yourself as an intersection and try to connect different types of areas, different types of people, different types of opportunities, because an exponential growth, growing faster, more efficient, more effective, comes not by going in one direction, but actually sitting in the intersection of things. And the intersectional thinking is, I think, what brought us together. Because otherwise we wouldn't be sitting in the same room talking about changing the world. But we're bringing two different forces into one intersection, the intersection that I think matters the most. I used to once say that if you want to touch the past, you go to the Wailing Wall, you hold a rock. If you want to touch the present, you hold a flower. But if you want to touch the future, you touch a child. You change their lives. You change the future. So I will tell you this many, many times, but it's a privilege to be here And I'm not used to a lot of the things the academic world is presenting to me, the challenges, the pace, but I will do it. I will. Well, that, honey, is called chance management. We're working together. We're working together. So another way of, I spoke about portfolio as a background. So another way of identifying or understanding what your background means as an asset is taking a look, and this is super important for students, and this is super important for younger people who have zero understanding of the directions possible. And they got to start somewhere. So I break it down into simple words and simple ideas, and I say, I'll put the whole thing. You a visioner or an executor? You have a drive, you do things right now, or you're more of a philosopher looking at the future? And then in terms of people, bless you. In terms of people, are you more a supporter? I'm sure most of the people in this room feel that they're very much in that box there of supporters and caregivers. But some of you, and that's why you're here, you're very good with people, working with people, to the point where you realize that you need to lead people, and that's why you're sitting in this room. So from understanding people, relating to people, you've become leaders of people. So that's another way of profiling who you are in terms of your skills and skill fitness. How about creativity? Are you more of an artist, good with words, music? You're a poet, you're a painter on the right side? Or are you more of an engineer, programmer, can build a new algorithm, mathematician? They're also very creative, but within the box. One thinks out of the box and one thinks in the box. And then in terms of management, are you more in favor of changes and working with the unknown, or more of a person who needs order and routine? So if you had to pinpoint yourselves and find where you are or where you stand out in your eyes, you'd get a better sense of where you can go in terms of what you do. And that will help you understand how to start stepping towards that direction. And that's something that you as adults find it sometimes more easy to do because you know yourselves and they don't. They don't have a track record and they need the first steps. And then where do we start? This is one of the first very simple ways for me to describe how do you start. So in strategy, they always say you start with the end in mind. But that's not true. You start with where you want to be in 5 years, 10 years. That's not true. And it's impossible in today's world. Does anyone use Waze? Do you know what Waze is all about? When you go into the car and you put in a destination where you want to go, will it tell you the way? The Waze. Will it tell you how to go, the way to get there? It will. What does it need in order to get there? What is the one thing, the piece of information that without it, the Waze system cannot operate? The compass cannot. It needs to tell you where you are. Have you ever been caught on a highway with no GPS? The Waze doesn't know how to take you there without understanding where you are. So here's your Waze here. And every single person I work with, doesn't matter if they lead. I worked with a guy from Washington. He manages 10,000 people in a budget of $10 billion. They flew in to see me. I did that with them. It's very simple, and it's something very useful you could do for yourselves in your lives, but more than anyone, kids who you work with need it. It's to position yourself at where you are today, moving forward. So in other words, where you are, it's not geographically, it's also in time. It's also the events you had and went through and so forth. Who you are as a result. Sometimes when you ask this question, where you are today, I'll be in October 46 years old, and my kids are 19 and 17 and 11. I can travel more today because they're not infants. 5 years ago or 10 years ago, I was in a completely different place. I couldn't be doing half of what I'm doing today because I was a mother and I was a very, very devoted one. I'm talking about me because it's the easiest, but we change over time, and where we are and who we are changes with it, which is why self-portraiting and understanding your profile and your portfolio changes. Think about all the people here that have changed careers. where you are, 2 minutes, I'm done. This is but where you are really matters, and who you are makes a huge difference. And that's the only way you can actually project and start stepping. And it's not where you want to be going backwards. It's where you are moving forward that makes the difference. A realistic, valuable definition of how you move forward. So I'm ending with saying, one of my favorite sayings, that life doesn't get better by chance, but by chance management. And with that, my email is here, and so is my website, chance.management. And I'm always happy to get ideas, to think about ways to create more value. That's one of my mottos in life, to work with those who influence many. So leaders influence many, but so do you. You influence many more. In fact, if I can reach out to some of your sites, projects, works, and find a way to work together, then that's a multiplying effect. That's, to me, exponential chances. So thank you so much for the opportunity.